Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Glad you've got some food. Thank you so much for coming to our second night of Real Lives 2019. Real Lives is put on by Buff Bar Church, and each evening is a different person sharing their story and a bit of what they're about, what they're like, and how their faith intersects with that. So tonight we have Paul Kerensa. Paul is a comedian and a writer. He is one of the writers for Miranda. I think so too. For Top Gear and for Not Going Out. And I'm really excited to have him. So please, would you put a warm round of applause for Paul Kerensa. Thank you.
Nearly all the way to the microphone. Come on. Yeah, okay, cut. Thank you. That's ample. Thank you, Callum, for that lovely welcome. Good evening. Are you well? Good. Are you eating? Marvellous. Are you anyone who's not eating? Two of you. Great. So you'll be the laughers tonight, okay? You've got to laugh at everybody else who is eating. That's the way it goes here. Very exciting to be here in Southampton. Give me a cheer if you're from Southampton. Three of us. Okay. Very excited. Give me a cheer if you're not from Southampton. Yes. Very happy to be not from Southampton. That's the way it goes. Lovely. Where are you from if you're not from Southampton then? Where are you from? Where have you come from? Australia. Wow, you've made an effort to be here. All of those. Thanks. Thank you. You sound like you're actually in Australia. Hello over there. And that you may have consumed some things made in Australia. Very excited to be here. Now, it's an unusual event. So tonight is put on by the church, but we're in, obviously, Cuba. Which is very exciting. I can smell the mojitos. I can even see some mojitos, I think, as well. I'm on the. This is not gin. This is good old-fashioned water. Unfortunately tonight. Thanks. Yeah. Because I've not been well. So I don't want sympathy. I just broke wind. That's just going out your way there. There we go. Getting nervous. No, I've had some time in hospital this year, and because I've reached that age where things go wrong. I turned 40 this year, and it all went terribly wrong. Give me a cheer if you're over 40. Yes, well done yourselves for making it this far in life. Well done you. Give me a cheer if you're under 40. I don't believe you for a second. I can see one or two people. No, it's very well done. Hold on to that youth. Well done you. Well done you, good people. This year, this is true. I was in hospital earlier this year, and it was the day of the local elections. Now, I presume you had local elections here as well, unless you have some sort of feudal system or something like that. I don't know how it all works here. I was in hospital on the day of the local elections, and while I was in hospital, two nurses talking over me like I weren't there, because they're at work, fair play. One said to the other, it's the local elections today, better go and vote after work. The other one said, I thought it was the general election today. Is that the same or is that different? And the other one said, it doesn't matter, they're basically the same. And that really worried me, because I was about to get a local anaesthetic. The general anaesthetic. Well done, you're ahead of us there. That's a tester joke to see at what level we're playing the gig. And half of you got it, half of you weren't sure. So that's fine. So I should introduce myself. I do stand-up comedy and I do comedy writing. I guess tonight I'll probably do more of the stand-up, I guess. Unless it goes really badly, I'm just going to start writing. That's what that table's for over there. Got a few deadlines. Give me a cheer if you've been to a live stand-up comedy event before. Excellent. Give me a cheer if you've never been to a live stand-up comedy event before. That was the same people. That's very confusing. If you've never been before, and there's about half of you who didn't cheer to either of those things, I presume either because you're not sure, or you're eating, or you've been to a sort of thing which was meant to be live stand-up comedy, but it wasn't technically funny, and so you can't really call it that. You might maybe enjoy a bit of stand-up on the telly, live at the Apollo, that sort of thing. But if you haven't been out live to it, you might watch it doing what we call in the trade a silent laugh. You're enjoying it, but in a sort of a kind of way. If that's you, you might as well leave now. We don't need you, okay? So we need the vocal laughers. That's how it's going to work. So in the first half, as Callum said, I'll do a bit of the standing up stuff, and then we'll have a break, and then we're going to do the interview thing, which is slightly... I'm looking forward to it. Don't get me wrong, I am looking forward to it. But at the same time, it's a slightly unusual vibe because it means it's that gear change, isn't it? So the first half of the show will be a bit like Live at the Apollo, except on a budget. And the second half will be more like Autopsy Live, when we'll analyse all the jokes that didn't work and and why, because of the context. And let us address the context, okay? Let us address, because it is a church event in a Cuban bar. So let us address the elephant in the room. Well, that's Hinduism. It's slightly different. But let's address, because I'm well aware. I've done a lot of church events. About half my gigs nowadays are for churches and half on the comedy circuit. And they can be weird, right? Because you get those two different sorts of audience at church comedy events. You get Christians who are hoping and praying that it will be clean and not filthy and won't go picking on people. And then you've got the non-Christians who are there just praying and hoping, or not praying, but hoping that it will just be funny, really, I suppose. And so we're going to try and get the two right. That's the idea. The church events I love. There is a broad variety in what sort of church event you get. And I think that's often because of the broad variety of churches. Because we have an idea of what church is, don't we? We've seen Vicar of Dibley, Midsummer Murders. That's what the media tell you. Church is an 800-year-old Anglican church building with pillars. Well, that's what it says, right? And that's not the case. I've done some comedy events for those churches, and they're lovely. But there is a hierarchy, right? After certain jokes, everyone's looking at the vicar to see if he or she is laughing first. And then they have permission. They're going like, ah, ha, 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 And also with you. It's one of those, right? I've done some Baptist churches, which are lovely, but you look down, you're on a platform, and you can look down, you can see a little shimmer of water just underneath the platform, and the minister's at the back, finger on the button, like, come on then, sunshine, let's see how this one goes, shall we? They're fine, but got to be careful. Salvation Army, great, lovely people. They're out doing great stuff in the community. Certain jokes don't kind of work at those events, though. Man walks into a bar. They're not so sure about that one. Man walks out of a bar. They love that. They go crazy for men walking out of bars, just not in. What else? Jehovah's Witnesses. They like knock-knock jokes. And I think we'll leave it there, probably. I'm not going to do all the denominations. I think we don't want to test the water too much, do we, a little bit? Like I said at the Baptist gig. So no, it's fine. So, but I do think one of my big passions is, we should be able to laugh, where our background is from, or just getting these things out there in different ways. And also like the Bible, right? We're not literally going to bash people over the head with the Bible, but I do think it needs to be out there in different ways, right? In different cultures, different contexts, because it is the best-selling book in the world, the Bible, right? Also, the most shoplifted book in the world. Did you know that? It's the most stolen book of all time, even though early on it says, thou shalt not do that. But some people think the Bible should be taken literally. Others think it should be literally taken. So, fair play to them. And there's some interesting stuff. Obviously, I'm a Christian myself. It's nice to be able to say that at a gig without a bottle flying, so I'll take my chance where I can. The name Christian, the title Christian, comes from two of the great names of history, Christ and Ian. We've forgotten Ian. Don't know who Ian was. No one wrote any of his stuff down. But I think it's good. It's obviously great to be. I've been a Christian for just over half my life, and some of the stories that are in that Bible we're familiar with, maybe from school or Sunday school or whatever. But it's difficult, isn't it? It is difficult to get your head around some of them. Like Adam and Eve, right? Whether you see it as literal or allegorical, metaphorical, metaphysical, whatever. Adam and Eve, there was this idea that at the start there was humanity was made and created, and the story is a great story, right? So you've got Adam. Legend has it, the story goes that it's just Adam to begin with, and God says to Adam, I'm going to create a woman. And Adam goes, no. Do you think I was born yesterday? And God said, well, you were. If you check the diary, it's just there. And then Eve comes along. There's no saying that they got on immediately. Eve might have looked at Adam and said, look, mate, no offense, but if you were the last man on the planet... Oh, you are? Okay. Because obviously, she didn't know him from him. And there's other stuff, like there's this legend, right? You don't have to, you've got to read between the lines a bit to get this, but there's this ancient tradition that Adam got to name all of the animals in one day, right? Now, I think there's a lovely tradition, whatever you think, there's a lovely tradition, because if you look at the names in the animal kingdom, it sort of makes sense. Early on in that day, duck-billed platypus, feather-tailed cockatoo, end of the day, gnat, bat, rat, cat, it's 5 to midnight, dog, hog, log, it's just a log, fair play, And then there are puzzles. There are things that the great theologians can't work out. Like, I wonder about Noah's Ark and the sharks, right? I reckon the sharks were meant to be wiped out because they're evil. I've seen Jaws, right? But because, the flood was to wipe out the evil and just keep and so all the animals 2 by 2 on the ark. But I reckon the sharks were meant to be wiped out but because it's a flood, they basically got away with it. They found a loophole. They could swim, right? So they just kept a low profile, go and keep it down, right? Look, there he is. There's Noah. Just 40 days of this, keep it down, right? And that's how they got their name, Ark, So it might have happened. I should say, don't take any of this stuff as gospel. I mean, that's the New Testament anyway. But my point is, I'm not here as a preacher. I'm here as a comedian, right? Okay, just talking about the thing. I think if Ricky Gervais can talk about it, then we should be able to in our club as well. That's the way it works, right? So what else about me? I should tell you some other things about me. I'm married. We've got these 2 diminutive lodgers with us for a couple of decades. Children, that's what they're called, isn't it? Children. And that's great. I've got 2 half brothers. Well, 1 brother. But that's before the accident. Anyway, and I've got my wife. We got married a few years ago, and that was lovely. And I've got the 2 little. So when we got married, out of any men here who are married, did you get much of a say in what happened at the wedding? No. There you go. Only one man even dared answer the question. Well done. There are other men here looking at their wives, going, "Can I answer the nice man?" No. We know our place. No, we know our place. No, I went into our wedding planning process thinking we could plan this together because it's our special day, isn't it? No, it's her special day, right? She'd already planned the wedding since the age of 12. So the whole wedding was themed on The Little Mermaid. Not a problem, we went with it. So there was me, dressed as an octopus, and which finger for the ring? And but the one thing my wife let me do is she said, you can plan the first dance. That's your area. You pick a lovely song, lovely ballad, ideally from the 80s, all right, would be great. For the first dance, we'll choreograph it, we'll dance to the first dance, right? And I chose a lovely ballad from the 80s, from U2, called I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. Beautiful, beautiful song, really, guess you know. So it's nice. That's kind of my era. I love an 80s ballad. Any fans of the 80s ballads we've got? Yeah, love it. 80s power ballads. Love them. Can't live if living is without. Epic songs. Always for the start or the end of a relationship. There's never a power ballad for the middle, is there? They're always like, can't live if living is without. There's never one that says, I do anything for love, but it is your turn to put the bins out. There's nothing in that kind of the day-to-day stuff, is there? It's all start or end. There's nothing for the middle. If you leave me now, the council tax will go up, so it's not really worth it in this financial climate. There's nothing in that zone, is there, for the day-to-day kind of stuff. But we are in that day-to-day kind of part of life at the minute. We've got school-age children, right, 6 and 9. Matthew 9, Ruth 6. Those are their favourite Bible chapters. And they're at school age now, so our house now looks a bit more like a Ryman's than it ever used to. Stationery everywhere. Generally, we've just spent the weekend sharpening the pencils and working out why we've got the white pencil. The white pencil has never worked on white or black paper. I don't know why we bother. We've found 50 rubbers. All of them just leave a red smear across the page. Don't know why we bother. The protractors, we've got those with its weird sort of set square friends there. We're in that kind of zone, right? That's the bit that we're currently in. And our kids, they've overtaken us technologically. And it happens younger and younger nowadays, doesn't it? My 6-year-old recently reprogrammed the parental lock on the TV so we can't watch what we want to watch. That's the bit we're in right now, We are feeling hopeless. Do we have other parents who feel hopeless with this? Yeah. And even non-parents, as you get older, you just lose touch with technology, don't you? You just haven't got a clue anymore. My 9-year-old, right, he's done 3 years of coding at school now. Did anyone here do any coding at school? No. None. Doesn't happen, does it? We haven't got a clue. He's done a degree's worth of coding now. His favourite thing at school is IT. He loves IT. For his birthday, he wanted a book on IT, and we found a book called IT by a bloke called Stephen King. And he loves clowns and balloons as well. It's a lovely bedtime read. It's really going to be quite amazing. But no, I think that the ship has sailed. Like, what do you think was a good number of TV channels in this country? What was a good number, do you think? 4, yeah. No one really wanted 5, did they? Let alone Freeview and Sky. And I mean, Netflix is good, but only because it generally shows all the old stuff that we used to watch anyway, pretty much, or some things from America. But let alone Apple TV. I can't work out even how you get these things. How do you have a Channel 5 and a Channel 4+1 that show different things? That makes no mathematical sense, does it? Because 4+1 is 5. Yeah, I still thought I'd explain some of the jokes for you, but It's fine. It's all right. It's fine. So, but no, good old Southampton. I like a bit of South. I used to come down here quite a bit. I like it. I mean, it's got its rough bits. I know. I saw the yellow police sign on the drive-in. You know, one of those violent robbery Thursday 9 p.m. Can you help? I thought I might turn up. I don't know what I'm doing Thursday, but spreading village news in the way that they do. No, I'm from a simpler place. I'm from a little village in West Devon called Cornwall, and it's not. It is a village, Cornwall. It looks like a county on maps, doesn't it? But actually, Cornwall is a village. We've got one road, one post office, one family. That's Cornwall, basically. And I like it. It's a good place to be from. I've lost the accent because I'm not a pirate, and it didn't really suit me. So, is anyone from West Country? We've got any West Country? Oh, yes. Where are you from? South Devon. Very nice. And yourself as well? Somerset. Very nice. And you've grouped together in the West Country corner of the venue. Is that how it's worked? You just think West Devon. That's good. Whereabouts in South Devon? Oh, yeah. Very nice. Teignmouth. Is that a place? Did that light just come onto you? Because is that just random? Or it's a random spotlight. I thought it was like she said the magic word. There we go. Teignmouth. I thought that was in the northeast. That's Tynemouth, isn't it? Is that different? That's different. Thanks. Thank you for the clarification. That's good. Okay, so you're from Devon, right? Okay, so let's just see this. If you had like a scone or a scone or a scown or a schoon, and a bit of jam and a bit of cream, what's going to happen there exactly? Yeah. Jam and then cream. Very good, very good. You've just betrayed your motherland. Well done. But you've chosen the Cornish response. Basically, right, if you don't know, is anyone from overseas, by the way? I meant to check before who I might need to explain. You got Callum. There you go. I've got to be nice to you because he's interviewing later. You're from America, aren't you? Very nice indeed. Lovely part of the world. Very nice indeed. And there was a hand up over there somewhere. Wait. Oh, there's pointing. Oh, Mexico. Hello, Mexico. Very nice indeed. This is like Eurovision now. Hello, Mexico. Can we have your results? And over there, this was this gesturing. Whereabouts are you from? From Spain. Very nice. I don't know any Spanish. I was about to welcome you, but I know nothing of this. Hola. Thanks for the help. Very nice indeed. How long have you been here from Spain? These aren't Brexit questions, by the way. You're very welcome. But you're fine. You're in 19 years. Well done. Very good indeed. Well, I hopefully all of this won't affect anything, and I've killed the gig. Spain, lovely Spain. Very nice indeed. No, the reason I checked, so 19 years, you know full well, and how long you been here, Callum? How long you been here? 6 years. Do you know about the Cornwall-Devon kind of thing, the rift? You know about that? Yeah. That's the proper, before Brexit, that was what was really kicking off down west, Cornwall versus Devon, because we've got there's a bit of, because Cornwall's only got one, Cornwall's the only county in Britain to only have one neighbour, which is Devon. And given, there's that neighbourly kind of thing going on, it's basically we've got all our angst against Devon, or otherwise it would be like America, but they're quite a long way away over the ocean. But really the only difference between Cornwall and Devon is the scones and the jam and the cream. So the Devon way is they go scone, and then they go cream, and then they go jam, which is weird. Why would they do that? And historically it's to show off, because jam was the pricier good, and it's to show... They're basically show-offs, right? That's all it is. But in Cornwall, we go scone, jam, cream, bit more jam, bit more cream, wrap it all in a pasty, and then an early demise. But what a way to go, We're not the best dietarily down in Cornwall, if I'm honest. It mostly resembles a Greggs, Cornwall. It's a lot of pastry and scones, that's about it. And... I've never had a good diet. I used to think if you have a pasty and then some antipasti, that's a 0-calorie day. But that's not how it works out, apparently. That's not what it is. So that's why I've hit 40, and I've put on a bit. I've put on a little bit. So I'm trying to lose a few. I'm just trying to lose, not a lot, I'm just trying to lose a few patronising friends who got about the gym all the time. That's what I'm really trying to cut out of my life. Keep the calories, lose the friends. And... because you do there's a lot of runners nowadays, aren't there? Any runners in? We've got any runners? You can always, John, there you go. Everyone always knows there's John. Yeah, he's off doing a marathon tomorrow, but there you go, well done you. Where's John? If you give us a wave, John. Hello, over there, right in the dark. Have you done, are you a marathon-y kind of person, or are you, a half marathon? Well done to you, very good indeed. Which one's that? That one. Southampton, very nice. They've got. I suppose you can have a marathon anywhere, can't you? You can have a South Devon, a Teignmouth marathon if you really want. Just go in circles around the village. It's fine. Well done to you. I've tried to be like you. I did the Couch to 5K thing. You know this app you can get, Couch to 5K. It's meant to get people who aren't very experienced at running 5K. If I'm honest, there wasn't quite as much couch as I was hoping. I thought it's in the title. Surely, day 1, complete box set, you know. Day 2, wind down with a few Breaking Bads and a Sherlock. But no, straight in with the running. And you get these patronising messages in your earphones. It's all from some celebrity trainer who's never run a mile in their lives, but they've pre-recorded some instructions, So they're there going, well done, you're doing great, you're halfway, one more shoe, you can go out the door. I'm trying. Stagger out to the pavement with the real runners like John, but my earphones are saying to me, like, just run for 9 seconds and recover for 8.5 minutes, because you've not done this before, have you? I'm going, no, I've not done this before, I don't know. And I finished the course, did the full 10 weeks, but at the end of it, they never say, now keep running. They just say, well done, you finished the course. So I'm looking for a new app now called 5K Back to Couch again. That's what I really like. Done my time. So I do watch too much TV. My wife said recently, turn off the TV. She said, just read a book, educate yourself. Do you know any words of Churchill, for example? I said, Churchill? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, no. Oh, yes. It's not the Nodding Dog insurance advert for Spain, Mexico, and America. There you go. It's the Nodding Dog. We've had it in this country a while. I realised it's not, that advert isn't shown in every country. And I realised that, I found that out the hard way, because I did some gigs overseas. And I did Berlin Comedy Festival. And it turns out that in Germany, they don't have Churchill car insurance, which was obvious in hindsight. And they approached, I'd learned the accent and everything. Oh yeah, or 9, nothing. Got nothing at all. And one American couple approached me after the show. They said, is that true? Did Winston Churchill, forgive the accent, I can't do it. Said, did Winston Churchill actually sound like that? And I'm ashamed to say, I said yes. So they're back in Texas now, genuinely thinking that Winston Churchill said, we will fight them on the beaches. Oh, yes. Ooh. Oh, nice. I don't know what that was. That was a little burst of funkiness going on. That was a bit of that. That was my exercise for the day. There you go, John. I'm trying to get into modern music. What do the kids listen to now? What's the current? Is it all Justin Bieber in One Direction? What's the thing? Is he? No, I'm trying to get into R&B, but look at me. I'm not R&B. I'm R&R at a B&B. Do you know what I mean? It's just a bit simpler for me. I'll say this: life on the road as a comedian. It's not glamorous, right? It's a lot of driving in this job. And what you do, a lot of comedians do this. You leave early, especially on like a Friday. If you've got a gig up country or something, you leave early, beat the traffic, find a cinema near the venue where you're doing your show. And so a lot of comedians, you see all your films on your own in the middle of nowhere on a Friday at like 1 PM. That's the comedian's time of going to the cinema. And I did this recently, but it kind of backfired because I was in the screen and I went to the loo, and the one other bloke in the entire cinema, he followed. I thought, oh, just give it 5 minutes, mate. Hold the screen for us, And I'm in the cubicle, and then he walked into the gents. I could hear him just outside my door going, hello? And I thought, that's weird. You don't talk to strangers in the toilet, do you? Just don't do it. But I thought, you can see my feet under the gap in the door, so I better reply. So I said, hello? And he said, what you doing? I thought, I don't want to answer this. Number 1, number 2, none of your business. And I thought, there are 4 empty cubicles next to mine. I don't know what he wants with me. Why do I always get the weirdos? I just said, I'll be out in a minute. He said, well, get a move on. And I thought, all right, it's got a bit weird. And I left the cubicle, and that's when I saw that he was on the phone all that time. And he's not talking to me at all, is he? Hello, what you doing? Get a move on. Made total sense. In fact, he had a friend and I didn't. So I was there thinking, this is not good for me. But yeah, so like I said, it's been a weird year though. I've been in hospital, and I was in for a little while, and nothing major. But I've had a history of this, right? I was so ill as a baby, I was actually born in a hospital. That's how bad it was, right? And when I was actually born without a belly button, right? I was born without a navel. I'm going to guess that most of you have got belly buttons, probably. They're quite in or out, aren't they? But they're generally. I don't want to embarrass people or anything. Let's have a hum. Humming would be good, wouldn't it? Good anonymous response. Give us a hum if you have an innie belly button. 1, 2, 3. Very good. Give us a hum if you have an outie belly button. 1, 2, 3. One. One bold person. Well done. No one knows where that came from. Don't worry about it. You're fine. Well, that's statistically unlikely, but as many outies as there are smoothies in the room, so that's fine. If the EU referendum had been voted with the belly buttons, the innies would have probably taken it, I think. But no. So I genuinely haven't got one, and see, normally at a pub, I demonstrate it at this stage. It's slightly weirder at a church event, isn't it? In case someone walks in late and goes, "Oh, it's Adam," because he wouldn't have had one either, would he? So. And we're being filmed as well, aren't we? I forgot that. Hello, is it Facebook Live? Is it YouTube? Oh, that's even better. That's popular, isn't it? There you go. Hello. Is anyone, have you got the stats there? Is anyone, no one's watching. Good, excellent, lovely, right. Well, so if you don't want to see the result, look away now, right? If you need proof of the lack of belly button, right, see, it should be there, and it's not, is it? So, a bit weird, isn't it? Thank you and good night. We'll leave it there. If you didn't see it, then I'm tough. You should have come. You can't give all your secrets away. So no, I generally have no. It's further down. That's not that sort of show. I'm sorry about that. You got to pay extra for that. Okay. It's inappropriate for a church booking. Or this church anyway. Church up the road, they'll go crazy for it. But no, it's not further down. Okay, trust me, it's not further down. It's higher up. It's not play your cards right. Higher, lower. I'm thinking of getting a tattoo of a belly button, but like just off centre, just to annoy the pedants, No, I would explain why. Otherwise, you'll never sleep again. What it is I like to leave this gap. People can puzzle it out. I've had people go, "Well, you must be an alien." I've had people say, "You must be a clone." I've had that a few times. I had one guy recently, arms folded, really unimpressed. He said, "Easy, you're a test tube baby." That's what it is, isn't it? Yeah. And of course, I had to explain to him that test tube babies aren't born in actual test tubes. And he really thought after 9 months, the glass smashes and the baby is handed over. That's not how it works, right? It's very clever, that technology. No, but the story behind me is basically a very simple reason that I've got no belly button, and that is I am Cornish. And we keep our fluff in our pockets. Otherwise, there's no real point, is there? No, but the real reason is when I was born in Cornwall, I actually, trigger warning, hope you've had your dinner and all that, I had some organs on the outside, okay, which isn't ideal because they're called internal organs. And they look at you and they go, "That's unusual, even for round here, And I think they basically said, "Well, we better fix it, otherwise it'll get looks, if he goes to the mainland up in Devon, And they made they made a little incision at the nearest gap, the belly button, and they put the organs back in, they zip it up, the belly button heals over. I don't know if that's what they're meant to do. It's what the Cornish doctors sort of improvise with, really. We didn't even have a hospital in Cornwall at the time. I was in the vets for most of this. And but I like to think that a Cornish doctor was basically there, going, "Oh, what should we do here? There's some organs on the outside, and it's not ideal, but we can make him like a pasty, shove the meat in, knead it together, bit of crimping, little bit of pasty crimping." That basically has done it. So I'm a human pasty, which is fine. But as a result, I've got basically it's like a sort of a semi-artificial bladder. So it's sort of bits of me and other bits of me kind of stitched together. So basically, because it's a bladder that I wasn't born with. But it is now mine. I call it my step bladder, so that's quite nice. It's a bit of a groaner, but it's one of those jokes no other comedian can nick without undergoing major surgery, so I'm having it, all right? I'm having it. And I'm fine now. Thanks for asking. Not one of you, but I'm all right. And but I was in hospital this year for all that, just checkups and all that sort of thing. And they knocked me out. They wanted to do some investigations and things, so I had the anaesthetic, and I came round and I was holding this button thing, which it turns out is like a painkiller. It's like a morphine or something, and you can top yourself up with the morphine. There's a limiter, so it's fine. But they never tell you that's what the button's actually doing, right? So I honestly thought I was calling the nurse for half a day. I was clicking away, going, nurse, I'm in pain here. Actually, it's not so bad anymore. Miraculously feeling a bit better. So just a cup of tea when you're ready, if you wouldn't mind, for me and for my unicorn friend here. Woohoo. And, because you start to see things a little bit, and I thought I was a weather presenter for quite some time, clicking away, And the bloke in the next bed, he had one as well, so we played Skelectrics for quite some time on a track that wasn't even there. Good times. But, But no, it's all right. I'm fine. I'm fine now. But one of the quirks of this was that I was told as a kid, I would not be able to have kids. And it's odd because I was told this when I was about 5, which is before I knew how to have kids. So I thought that meant no play dates or something. I couldn't quite work it out. But I grew up kind of with that mindset of thinking the doctors said, no family and things. And I don't take this lightly. It's a big issue for many people. And I grew up with this in my mind. And so I kind of put off relationships all through school. I had one girlfriend at school in the latter years of school, and that was it. She was a bit of a joker. She called me up. She'd say, "Hi, it's me. Why don't you come round? There's no one here." I went round. There's no one there. But, she did warn me. And I broke up with her. Never broken up with anyone in my life. Didn't know what to do. Took a deep breath, sat down. I'm sorry it's not working out between us. It's time we went our separate ways. It's over. Send. And too much, wasn't it? But I tried, and in my 20s as well, this sort of went on into there, and I sort of again thought, relationships, forget it, it's not going to work out, a different path for me, sort of thing. I was a geek, right? At school, I was the maths geek and the film geek. I set up lunchtime maths club, because there ain't no party like a maths club party, I can tell. We were crazy. We had 100 members of maths club, 100 members, but that's binary, so it's 4. And we always met in room 42 because according to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, 42 is the answer to life, the universe, and everything. Before I became a Christian, I realised it was something else. But and film club, lunchtime film club, we had that as well. So I was the geeky guy, right? And then I got married eventually, and that was great. And in fact, got married by doing the dating thing, right? So I spent about a couple of decades doing the British style of dating, very side on, very kind of like. You slowly sidestep her into the peripheral vision of, you befriend a lady over about 10, 20 years. And then slowly, when she catches you, like, oh, yeah, I was just thinking, you and me, should we go out? I was thinking, no, I thought it was a silly idea as well, just joking, And then that takes, like I said, 10 to 15 years. And I thought, I've not got the lifespan for this. I did that twice. That's like 30 years. So I thought, let's forget that. Let's do the American style of dating. Yes, more head-on. It's when you got someone who you don't know, in a bar, in a cafe, in a bowling alley, wherever, and you go, hey, you don't know me, and that's going to work in my favour. Nice shoes. I mean, everyone's wearing nice shoes. It's a bowling alley, and then you ask her out, right? And I will warn you, I recommend doing this. I do recommend it. She'll probably say no, but that's okay because each no is one no less until you get to a yes, right? And I should say, you need to ask out different people, okay? Not the same person again and again. So it meant I had lots of first dates. About a year or two, I had lots of first dates. Not many second dates, a lot of first dates. And I thought, let's have one first date question that I can ask at all my dates. And then, we can compare and contrast and plot it on a graph. That's the idea. And I didn't do that. But I did have a first date question. And it was this. I said, is there a band or artiste that you've always followed through thick and thin? Might not be so fashionable now, but if a new album comes out, then you secretly go and get it, right? Little icebreaker question, right? And it's quite nice because it's a little guilty pleasure sort of thing. I had every answer. I'm sure a few of you are thinking of yours. Anyone care to yell out theirs now out of interest? No, you're right, because they're all really embarrassing, aren't they, right? So I had Right Said Fred, Richard Marx, someone said Take That, Boyzone, Barry Manilow, slightly older lady I was dating at the time. Daniel O'Donnell, even older lady, and then I met my wife, and she said, I can't tell you mine, it's really embarrassing. I said, mine's worse, you tell me yours, I'll tell you mine. She said, all right, it's Roxette, the Swedish power pop combo, right? It must have been love, come on, join the joyride, all that sort of thing. And I said, I can't believe it, that's mine as well. And right then I knew two things. I thought, first of all, I've got to marry her, because we're the only two Roxette fans left in the world. And secondly, I thought the next day I better rush out and buy all of Roxette's albums just to make the backstory kind of work, Be flexible, it's my recommendation, right? So, and then we got married, and I told her as well about the fact that I was told I couldn't have kids. Obviously I did tell her that, at the altar. And then, but 6 months later, then she became pregnant. So, who's the daddy? I mean, genuine question, but no, it's me because he looks a bit like me, by which I mean he wears the same glasses. He doesn't need glasses. I just make him wear the glasses. But this is the thing. So, I mean, I'm not going to be so, it will be flippant to sort of go, oh, well, power of prayer and things like this. But, you know, we pray about a lot of things. And I think all you can do is pray for God's plan to be kind of here and now and help you along the way, basically. And at the time, it feels like you're going through undergrowth sometimes in life, but you look back and you can kind of see the path that is there all along. You just couldn't see it at the time for the high grass kind of thing. And I think the thing is, right, that it's easy to go, oh, well, it just happens. It's nature's way, whatever. But I've got a bit of evidence, right? And it just works for me, right? Simply this, right? Our two kids, who we were told what not going to happen, have got the geekiest birthdays possible, right? And I was a maths geek and a film geek. And one's got a maths geeky birthday, one's got a film geeky birthday, right? So my daughter, she has got the film geekiest birthday of the year, which is, of course, May the 4th, Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. You see, that's why they call it Star Wars Day. On Star Wars Day, I got to say to her, I am your father. Great fun. Great fun. Even the midwives got behind it. They said, you've got to name us something out of Star Wars, haven't you? Like Leia or Chewbacca or something. We didn't, would have been cruel. But Jar Jar Binks has a brother. And he's got the maths geek side covered, right? So you know when you're expecting, you get a due date, right? Very arbitrary. It's kind of guesswork. You get a due date, right? But it's fair. It's so arbitrary. In different countries, it's different. It's calculated differently. In France, the due date is a week later than if you're in England, just because I think in France they allow for the strikes or something. I'm not entirely sure. I may be wrong. But the setup of that is true, right? Forget that. But it is in France. It's a week later. So with our son, it was the 1st of October 2010. 1-10-10. 01-1010. Binary baby. Very exciting. Come on. And we were building towards it, and on the 1st of October, I was like, come on, push. You've got to have him today, or it'll be totally not worth it. Don't say that out loud. Never good. My wife was saying, he's going to be late. I'm not even in labour yet. It's going to be at least a week late, right? And he was over a week late. A week and 2 days late he was. Not born on the 1st as I really wanted, but born on the 10th, which is even better because it's 10-10-10. 1-0, 1-0, 1-0. I mean, that is a binary baby and a half. That is... It looks good, it sounds good, it feels good, it's binary, it's a series. And if you want even more evidence of some divine coding behind this, if you translate 101010 from binary into decimal, you actually get 42, which is the answer to life, the universe, and everything, according to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So if that's not one giant in-joke that God's playing on me, I don't know what is, basically. But so you live in we should probably be wrapping up. So look at the time. I've waffled on way too long. We're gonna have a break, and then as like a sort of a second half, we'll just talk further. And you can spot the times that Callum asked a question that I crowbar in a joke that I forgot to say in the first half. I go, well, it's funny you should say that because the chicken did cross the road like this, or whatever. But we won't do that. But in the words of my ex-girlfriend, I think it's time we had a break. But thanks for. I'm handing back to you. I'm like, Callum, if you've got admin. Callum has admin, but yes, see you again shortly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. We're gonna have a 5-minute break. There's more food if you want some. Top up a drink. Lose this way. 5-minute break, and then we're going to come back and ask Paul some questions. Enjoy.
I assumed science and God are not compatible. And I went to this event and I put my hand up and I said, surely you can't be a scientist and believe in God at the same time. And I was given the answer that actually you can, that science and religion are operating on different levels, answering different questions. And this was rocket science for me. I had never heard anything like that.
It was very important to me that reason was attached to my faith. I saw this book on my grandmother's bookshelf called Jesus Among Other Gods. And in the book, the bottom of the page, it says, faith is not bereft of reason. And that phrase literally changed my whole paradigm of Christianity.
I assumed science and God are not compatible. And I went to this event and I put my hand up and I said, surely you can't be a scientist and believe in God at the same time. And I was given the answer that actually you can, that science and religion are operating on different levels, answering different questions. And this was rocket science for me. I had never heard anything like that.
It was very important to me that reason was attached to my faith. I saw this book on my grandmother's bookshelf called Jesus Among Other Gods. And in the book, the bottom of the page, it says, faith is not bereft of reason. And that phrase literally changed my whole paradigm of Christianity.
I assumed science and God are not compatible. And I went to this event and I put my hand up and I said, surely you can't be a scientist and believe in God at the same time. And I was given the answer that actually you can, that science and religion are operating on different levels, answering different questions. And this was rocket science for me. I had never heard anything like that.
It was very important to me that reason was attached to my faith. I saw this book on my grandmother's bookshelf called Jesus Among Other Gods. And in the book, the bottom of the page, it says, faith is not bereft of reason. And that phrase literally changed my whole paradigm of Christianity.
I assumed science and God are not compatible. And I went to this event and I put my hand up and I said, surely you can't be a scientist and believe in God at the same time. And I was given the answer that actually you can, that science and religion are operating on different levels, answering different questions. And this was rocket science for me. I had never heard anything like that.
It was very important to me that reason was attached to my faith. I saw this book on my grandmother's bookshelf called Jesus Among Other Gods. And in the book, the bottom of the page, it says, faith is not bereft of reason. And that phrase literally changed my whole paradigm of Christianity.
We're gonna make a start. If we could get the music off, that would be great. I see somebody working on that. Great. Do grab a seat. Do come on in. Just waiting for that music. Great. Okay. Welcome back. Welcome back. So, Paul, thank you so much for that.
No worries.
Did you always want to be a comedian?
I still do.
You still do?
One day. No, I didn't. I didn't want to be a comedian at all. I thought that's a terrible idea. And I tried. I think there's an era nowadays of newer comedians who have seen stand-up on the telly, and they go, "Yeah, I could do that." And it's now a thing. Live at the Apollo, Mock the Week. You can now do a degree in stand-up comedy. You see new comedians who are 18 and they have a 5-year plan, like year 1, the London open mic circuit, year 2, Edinburgh, year 3, Adelaide International Comedy Festival, year 4, get my own sitcom. Whereas people like me, I was before that era, when we all did it because there's nothing left you can do. And I went to drama school, I tried acting, I couldn't act. And as I left drama school, they said, anything you can put on your CV, if you can speak French or dance or drive a car, put it on your CV. I thought, I can't do any of these things. And I tried stand-up comedy once just to say I'd done it, to put it on the CV, and I loved it straight away. And that was, sort of fell for it in that way. I went, actually, this is much better than acting. Forget acting. You'd have to learn lines with this.
So do the jokes just kind of come for you, or you slave over them, thinking about them and perfecting them, or how does that work? I can't imagine.
Still trying to work it. I think the thing is, if you could bottle it and just keep it doing like that. I think it is really something I find very tricky is that turnover of new material. So you're constantly trying to try stuff, and the trouble is the only way of trying it is to try it. You can't stand in front of a mirror and go, oh, let's try this little joke thing, because your reflection won't laugh. It turns out, and you try in front of an audience, and often then they won't laugh either. But at least you know. And often it's like the rule of 3. You try it 3 times, and if they still don't laugh by the 3rd time, maybe it's not funny. But there's no substitute for the real thing. Yeah.
So did you try out anything on us?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Did you notice this is the autopsy I was talking about when you go back and go, oh yes. I was thinking the other day about how our house is turning into, we're getting there's stationery everywhere, and I thought there's something funny in this, but I haven't found the funny thing yet. So you may notice that halfway through me listing stationery, I sort of just lost interest and started talking about something else entirely, and went for a punchline that I know works. So that it's one of those things we spent the whole weekend just, and there's more of it grows all the time. And those biros that have the 4 colours that none of them work well enough to actually justify their existence. Again, that's a thing that might nearly one day become a joke, but not tonight. So So yeah, often it's just, you know, the setup and you've got to work your way through it. Some jokes start with the punchline, you've got to work your way backwards, but it's, I don't know, it's a horrible business. And I don't recommend anyone try it.
So how did you get started then in comedy?
I did this stand-up comedy evening class after drama school just to say I'd done it. And I was the only one there really interested in actually then doing it, I think, after that. There was one guy there who came thinking it was pottery and got the wrong night. And he just stayed for the full 6 weeks because he thought, well, it's a night out, you know, not away from the family and all that. So yeah, but I did it and I loved it, and I did the open mic circuit for a couple of years. There were some stand-up comedy competitions at the time. There still are, but there's slightly different ones nowadays. If you time it right, if you do the competitions when you've got a good 5-10 minute set, then you can do well. So I won a couple of competitions. I was runner-up in a couple, and it just got me enough to be got me an agent, got me a little bit of a leg up in the career. Although if I'm honest, I sort of did that, and then I kind of plateaued up for a long time. And then about 1,000 comedians overtook me in terms of, you know, that's why I've not been on Live at the Apollo and things like that. There is a big queue for that, and there are people whose time is now. So the writing side of things I was doing at the same time, and that is probably, I mean, arguably that's gone sort of more successful in terms of public appearances and things. Although it's so up and down that actually, at least the stand-up is weirdly reliable. You know, you can get, you know, between 1 and 3 or 4 gigs a week, generally speaking, ongoing. Whereas the writing, you can go 6 months of nothing, and then suddenly loads of stuff comes in. Whenever they want it tomorrow. So suddenly the phone rings. The phone rang today. We want some work done. Can you do it by tomorrow? Well, yeah. I've got to get to Southampton. I've got to sleep. But you know, it's always that sort of thing.
Yeah. And how did you start doing comedic writing as well?
Yeah, that was, again, it's been slightly different. It's always been quite parallel. So for me, there's always been the BBC are really good at having an open door show, as they call it. So at the minute, it's called Newsjack. It's on Radio 4 Extra. Anyone can write for Newsjack, and if they like your joke or your sketch, you get paid £10 or £50 if it's a sketch, and then you've got a credit and you get to know a producer. When I started, it was a show called The News Headlines on Radio 2. I got to know that producer, and then she moved to the News Quiz and then the Now Show. So you just get to work on a lot of different shows. And then one day, Lee Mack, who wasn't famous at the time, but the lift doors opened at the BBC Radio Entertainment Department. Lee Mack stepped out. I knew of him through the circuit. He didn't know me. But he's always kind of joking, Lee. Doesn't really do much serious ever. So he sort of stepped out the lift doors and said, I have a radio sketch show. Where are the writers? And I just went, yeah, all right, I'll do it. You know. And so I got to write for him based on that, really. And my writing partner at the time was in the toilet, so he didn't get the job and I did. So the lesson is hold it in. You know? You never know where the next opportunity is. And then I got to know Lee and got to move to TV for not going out. And then Miranda came from that and so on. So it's just right place, right time. Get to know people and be nice. Forget talent. Just be nice and available, and that's what you need.
Nice and available. Yeah, what's it like writing for Miranda and Top Gear and these kind of shows? I'm just new to Miranda. I just started watching it in the last month because I'm from the States, so I didn't know about it beforehand.
You're that guy. You're the guy from the States. Yeah, it's Miranda's been fun. Such fun, I should probably say legally. And in fact, I think it's just been sold to America as a remake. I think the guys behind The Big Bang Theory are going to remake it. I don't get a penny for that, but good luck to them. So unless they hire me as a writer, but I think they've got their own people in America, and they're quite good at that. So yeah, it's good fun. There's the big contrast with American studio sitcoms, big table of 20 writers all lobbing in one-liners and zingers and things. And there's a big tray of donuts, and it's well paid. Over here, we don't quite have the same budgets. It's normally like 3 writers, and you've got to buy your own donuts, and it's a bit rubbish. And so with Miranda and with Not Going Out, both similarly structured in that you've got Lee or Miranda, who's the star, and the writer and the producer. They are the boss. It's their show. They're sort of playing themselves. So in both cases, they do a draft of the script with loads of gaps and highlighted bits, and then I come in with a couple of other writers and add lots of suggestions and attempts at humour in those bits, really. So with Miranda particularly, a lot of the gaps, she'd done the plot, and for her, a lot of the gaps were weird, funny, visual thing that we can chuck in at the last minute that won't affect the plot. So whenever she goes, oh, it's not like I'm doing this sad and pathetic thing that I could be doing at home, cut to her doing that sad and pathetic thing. So then it does feel like she'd often get to that point and go, what sad and pathetic thing could I be doing at home? Wonder what Paul's doing now. Let's find out. So those are the bits that I would often do. You know, the silly games, the fruit friends, the Where's Wally spoofs, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know.
And you make an appearance in Miranda.
I did. I was a customer in Series 3, yes. I've been begging her since Series 1 to get me in there. But I wanted to be in the background just browsing in the shop. I had this whole sort of choreographed, kind of chased out, and it's weird. But it was good fun, and we're doing a new version for this Christmas, like a reunion show, just a one-off version of that we're writing at the minute. So that's going to be, it should be fun, I think. So yeah.
That's exciting.
It should be good. We hope it's good.
Yeah. And your experience with Top Gear, I guess, was quite different from Miranda.
Very different. Very different than any other show I've ever worked on in my life. And I only worked on the Chris Evans series, and if you didn't see the Chris Evans series, it went really well. And if you did see it, then you know the truth. But it was fun, and that weirdly that came about from the Christian side of things, because when I've done a few books as well, which are of course conveniently available afterwards. But the first book I did of those was a Christian publisher. And they met me at a Christian festival, said, do you fancy writing a book? I did so, and then that got on the table of someone at the Radio 2, Pause for Thought slot, which is like Thought for the Day, but the Radio 2 version. And they said, do you want to come in and do some, we've got a comic relief week where we've got comedians with a faith, with a lot of different faith backgrounds doing the Pause for Thought. So I did that as a one-off, but like everything, it wasn't an audition, but if it goes well, it's sort of an audition. So I've been doing it ever since. I'm doing it again all through November, and I got to know Chris Evans through doing that, because he was the breakfast show host at the time. So he said, he was doing the TFI Friday revival show. So he said, do you want to come and write for that? Because you do writing for sitcoms. And he'd never seen any of the sitcoms I'd written for. But again, it's just being nice and available. He liked me, and I like work. So so I did TFI Friday with him, and that was great fun. That was more like a gift, really, because they didn't need a lot of writing. It was just you get to go along and just see the bands perform, and it was just good fun. And then he said, I've got the Top Gear gig, do you want to come and do that? So obviously I went and joined in. I didn't, it was the best of times and it was the worst of times in many ways. It was just such high pressure, and the press were literally making stuff up about the show and never testing it. And in fact, one of the journalists even admitted to it, said, we're just making stuff up and seeing if you guys bite. If we say Chris stormed out of a meeting and left someone in tears, if that happened, you'll then react to that perhaps. And of course, I was in these meetings going, well, that didn't happen, So, but then the one time that they got something right, and they was quite specific about a certain meeting when things were already not going well because the press largely were so against it. They got something weirdly accurate, and there were only like 5 people in the room. And I thought, well, Chris didn't leak it to the press. Matt LeBlanc didn't leak it to the press. The producer didn't. I didn't. And that leaves about 1 or 2 other people. But people are looking at me like it could have been me. And suddenly paranoia creeps in. And it was suddenly not a creative, happy place. As soon as you got those paranoid things of, well, someone here's leaking stuff to the press, it's very difficult to be constructive and creative in those sort of environments. So it was fun to start with, and then not fun at the end, and yes, that was that really. Yeah.
That sounds tough.
Go.
Tell us a bit about, so often when people think about church, faith, that kind of thing, they don't think about laughing a lot, or think about comedy. How in the world do you mix being a Christian and being a comedian?
Well, joy, and it should be kind of part of that whole Christian ideal, shouldn't it? I think there's a lot of joy that's sort of talked about in the Bible, and generally speaking, we're meant to be people of, we're joyous folk. That said, there is a stereotype probably, and I think part of that does seem to be, a concern from some in the church about what we're laughing at, and what should we be laughing about those things, or should we talk about those things? But then also that does mirror the conversation that's going on in the comedy circuit at large as well. In the secular comedy circuit, there has been that shift of, trying to sort of punch up, not punch down, not pick on people. The idea of racist, homophobic, sexist jokes being a thing of the past. But then other comedians going, well, actually, the stand-up comedy stage is the last bastion of free speech. Kind of, you should be able to say what you want up there. Kind of go, but it's got to be funny. And if the audience are at the time of asking, going, actually, we're not buying into this. I've seen a lot of comedians lately. There might be that stereotype of stand-up comedy as being a lot of swearing and things like that. But I know a few comedians who have maybe in the past been quite bawdy and quite sweary, and actually they're now saying that they have noticed the culture changing. And I think since comedy's gone more mainstream and Michael McIntyre and things like that on the telly, it's become more family friendly. And they've found at clubs that they are going out and being 90s and laddish and sort of bawdy, but find the audience are going, no, we just wanted a nice night out, really. Could it not be like it is on the telly and a bit kind of just friendlier, So I think a lot of comedians are now finding that actually people don't want the last bastion of free speech and telling it like it is. They just want to be told, kind of, the world's a bit rubbish at the minute. Can you just cheer us up? I think, which is sort of generally the status in the circuit at the minute. So, yeah, but as you said, it can be. There are quite a few Christian comedians. Miranda herself is a Christian. Tim Vine, Milton Jones, there's quite a lot of comedy writers. There's a good dozen or so. I didn't say 12 just because it's a biblical number, but there are at least a dozen or so Christian comedians as well on the stand-up circuit. So we're out there doing our thing, but often it's that thing of knowing that there's another one. You can feel like a dot. Whatever your workplace is, if you think you're the only Christian there, for example, then you feel like a bit of a dot. But once you know there are two there, it's kind of, then you're a line. And then if there are three, that's a triangle, the strongest of shapes. And so it's just kind of, when we did Top Gear, for example, one of the directors on Top Gear is a Christian, and he does all the very flashy, whenever you see any of those car films on Top Gear that make the car look beautiful and epic, he does those. And he was the director of the film of Top Gear that got us on the front pages of the newspapers, as opposed to just little columns on the inside, which was a stunt that for a brief moment from a long lens almost looked like they were doing it near the cenotaph, and it wasn't really. And also the year before, Jeremy Clarkson did it, and the year before that, Daniel Craig did it, and it wasn't an issue then. But Westminster Council said, oh yeah, you can do it on that bit down the road from the cenotaph, which they did, but from an angle, anyway, it looked bad. And this guy was the director of that film. And then he was there in the office the next day going, oh, head in hands, what was I thinking? I should have been on top of that, making sure that it didn't look like that, etc. And I showed him an article in the Guardian newspaper with the headline, God Hates Top Gear. And they'd listed all of the things that had gone wrong with this series of the show, and just said, look, clearly, there's some sort of divine vengeance against this show going on here. God hates Top Gear. And I showed this to this director who's a Christian, and he said, no, God doesn't hate Top Gear. God loves Top Gear. And he started to stand on his chair at this point, open plan office, even the Stig stopped saying anything. And he said, no, God loves Top Gear. I'll tell you why God loves Top Gear, because God is using Top Gear to show me humility and that I know nothing at all about showbiz, and I thought I knew what I was doing, but bring myself back down to earth a little bit. And certainly after that, everyone knew that there were two Christians in the office. There was him and me, and people knew I was doing Pause for Thought, and he was doing this kind of mini, whatever that was, teacher, oh my teacher, on a chair. It's dangerous as a swivel chair as well, but it was, but just knowing, and more, I'm talking, not kind of just constantly talking about, well, off to church in a minute sort of thing, but just, if people know you're a Christian or know you're into whatever, if you watch a certain TV, whatever it might be, it's part of your life, rather than hiding it under a bushel kind of thing. It's, then you go, oh yeah, well, I'm a Christian as well, or it turns out there's more in the office than you think sometimes,
So how did you become a Christian? Were you raised kind of in a Christian family, that kind of thing?
Not as really, but my parents they're not sort of church people as such, but we were in a village, so they were village people, really, and it's a cowboy and a builder. But no, no, but it was kind of classic British English village life, with a village with one church, 6 pubs, and a cricket green and all that sort of thing. So my brother and I were sent to church kind of as free childcare, I think. So we were in the Sunday school and the choir and the scouts and the Girl Guides, whatever else they could find. And so I was coming back going, it's good stuff, this. I'm getting somewhere with this. And I think my parents were going, well, that wasn't the idea, but okay. And so I started going away on every summer to this like a week-long Pathfinders kind of, which is like a teenage Sunday school, kind of next stage of Sunday school thing. A teenage Christian camp thing. And I went about 5 years in a row all through my teenage years. So that for me was it was like doing a course like you get at church, but over like for one intensive week a year. So I'd come back, I'd save up my questions for the other 51 weeks and ask them the next year to the same leaders, And so I think I became a Christian really on the riverbanks of this like a canal boat kind of venture holiday thing. I think it was like one year we'd look at what prayer was and kind of puzzle that out, and the next year we're working out what's the story of Jesus' sort of ministry and what events happened and so on. And then I did a theology degree as it happened as well. But by that point, I'd become a Christian really, and I was just kind of going, let's just delve into this further. And it wasn't a vocational course. In fact, most people on the course weren't Christians, but we were looking at the original Greek and the Hebrew and things like that, and just grappling with it intellectually. In that sense, I've approached it from a few angles, and I kind of, you often find the shape of a thing by kind of prodding at the edges a bit and just go, okay, well, what about, okay, well, that makes sense. I go, well, Jesus was a historical figure, so it's like, was he one who was who he said he was, or was he not who he said he was? And for me, having looked into it, I would argue that yes, he was who he said he was, and that early church was built on something, and that something was him. And and I think it's the one for me in that sense,
Yeah. And you mentioned how you were born with some
weirdness.
internal organs as external organs.
Yes.
So, and you've had a lot of, I guess, health issues continued from that?
A few, yeah.
So I guess you could say you've had to ponder your mortality a fair bit more than some people have
I've
had
had
to.
I think at least 3 times on the operating table that I know of, where the doctors have said it was 50-50, really, and that's sort of, that times 3, that makes it, it's like 150 or 150. I mean, that's a lot. So, whatever that means. But I was in Great Ormond Street a lot as a kid, and I missed the whole first term of my school career because I was in hospital for most of it, So I joined in January after all the kids had got to know each other. And I've been catching up ever since, really. That's why I've not got a pension and a real job. If you miss out early on, you just can't catch up. And what I think that honestly, when I was in Great Ormond Street, even at the age of 7 and 8 and stuff like that, I was sort of, you puzzle out a few things, don't you? And then in latter years as well. It's a comfort, but also it is something that I think you end up pondering at some point in your life. It's sort of just a case of when, in a way, really. So I think the fact I've kept going back to hospital means I keep going back to those big questions.
Yeah. I mean, I guess a skeptical person would say, well, yeah, when you've experienced that, it's nice to have a comfort like faith. What would you say in response to that?
Yeah, but equally, just because something is comfortable doesn't mean it's true. And also, sometimes it's not as comforting as you kind of would want it to be, I don't think, because it brings, I still have more questions than I have answers. I don't think, it's sometimes easy to go, okay, I'm a Christian, that's everything solved. And in a way it is, but if you drill down into the specifics, it's something we still battle with. I was driving down, I listened to a lot of podcasts on the road, and I'm driving down here today, I listened to one podcast to do with, I'm doing a project about Christmas at the minute, and I need to research everything to do with Christmas, so I'm part of me's doing that, but the other part, I listened to this theological debate between two Christians, both church leaders, but both with different views on the nitty-gritty, and it is, there are still issues that we battle with, about who is saved, what does that mean, how do we represent God on earth and things like that, and there are a lot of big issues there. I keep coming back to the fact that I look at that and go, I don't think I need to know all of those answers, So I think I believe in Jesus. I believe in God, and I believe that there's something to come. And if you want to ask me what that looks like, can I paint a picture? Probably not really, because we kind of go, well, there might be a cloud, and there's no need to do that, I think. And artists over the years have wanted to interpret that, and many people, I'm sure everyone here has an idea of what they think heaven might be. Or heaven and hell, if there is, what is there one? Is there not? Everyone's got an idea of that, and sometimes I think it's quite enough to ponder and have that sort of general belief and drill down to some specifics. But sometimes we can't all agree on what exactly it's that whole thing. There are known knowns and known unknowns and unknown knowns and things like that. And for me, I'm still on that journey. I'm still puzzling it all out, and that's exciting. That's great. That's fine, I think.
Nice. Yeah. I want to ask you some questions going back to comedy before then wrapping up. The first one I was just thinking about was this crowd was fairly calm, not so rowdy. What's been your kind of?
Do you have a couple of tables? But
John Lever, the Australian, but that's Australians for you. I guess what's been some of your, I guess maybe your worst experience and also one of your favorite experiences doing comedy?
It's oddly, I don't even think about it, because the trouble, it instantly comes back to you. Obviously, people. Was it Jerry Seinfeld who said people's number one fear in life is public speaking? Apparently, number two is death. And so you think, I'd rather be in the coffin at the funeral than doing the eulogy. That's what most people seem to think. So, but if you've done public speaking, then you know when it goes wrong. If you've done a work presentation and that you go on the PowerPoint and nothing happens, or whatever, or suddenly the battery just fades, all those things go wrong. So you know what it's like. But for me, the worst one was, I don't mind a heckle. Some heckles are good. I was at a gig in Birmingham not long ago called the Glee Club, and it's a lovely club, and they have funny hecklers there. They are on the ball. You've got to be careful. Not sort of you rubbish, get off, taxi for the comedian, but creative. And this one guy at the back said, "Hey, you're like Bruce Willis." And I was like, "Oh, thanks. Like a movie star or something." He said, "No, in The Sixth Sense." I was like, "What do you mean by that?" He said, "He didn't know he died either." And brutal, but if you've not seen The Sixth Sense, I should say, then I wouldn't bother. But you've had 20 years. So I don't mind a heckle, but one of the worst gig I've had was a club in Ballads in London, and I did one of my first ever 20-minute sets there, which is sort of that's the gold standard in comedy. Once you do 20, that's your kind of set, and they had a cancellation a month later, so I came back about a month later. And I only had 20 minutes of jokes. I couldn't pick and choose. So I had to do the same 20-minute set. And there was a couple of guys right down the front. They had a few drinks. And they remembered me from 4 weeks ago. And it was so fresh in their minds. They were yelling out my punchlines before I could get to them. And they beat me to it every single time. So within about 5 minutes, I hadn't got a single laugh. They'd got loads, but I hadn't got any. And this, from the back of them, the worst thing, at least a heckle engages with you, but the worst thing is to be ignored, and you could hear this slow wave of chat from the back of the room, and before you know it, I'm spending half my set just going, hello, and that's when you've lost it, at least if they're talking to you, it's one thing. So that was the worst gig, bar none. And that was when I started out, that was about 18 years ago, and a couple of years ago, at Gatwick Airport, a guy came up to me, and he said, "Are you a comedian?" I thought, "Yeah, I'm famous, someone spotted me." He said, "You wouldn't remember me, but about 15 years ago, I yelled out a few of your punchlines at this club in Ballads. You wouldn't remember." I said, "You've haunted my dreams every night." So that was the worst anyway. And the best wasn't stand-up as such, but earlier this year, I was asked to sort of write the bits of a play to go with a thing called Prom Praise at the Albert Hall. And they had sort of the music, they knew all these classical music bits, and they wanted to tell the story of the Exodus, Moses, part of the Red Sea and all that, all for school kids. And I was going to sort of write the play and for just one narrator to read out with the bits between the orchestra. And the narrator was going to be David Suchet, and then he had to cancel like 2 days before. And they said to me, "Well, can you do it? You know the script." So yeah, all right. So I'm game. So I've never even been to the Albert Hall, let alone anything else. So walking in on that day for the dress rehearsal, and then a few hours later, it was completely full, sold out of school kids and teachers and parents and things. And it's not quite the same as a sold out stand-up comedy gig at the Albert Hall for adults, but 8,000 school kids, and I got to sort of narrate this play. I had a couple of jokes in there, and they laughed. And when you hear the laugh of, I love a gig, of this size and smaller. It's great because real live laughs are fantastic. But to hear the laugh of 8,000 people echo around a thing, I will never forget that. So that was magical. And then at the end, we all sang Amazing Grace, and everyone joined in, and it was a real feeling of, it felt like proper, goose pimply stuff in terms of a moment of worship as well. So
we're running out on time, but I wanted to ask you with I guess your whole career based on comedy, and you were saying about the highs and lows there. I guess it could be really based on if people laugh or if they don't, and if they don't, well, that would be pretty deflating. I guess how does your faith help you with kind of gauging? Yeah, if you have a rubbish night or something like that, if they don't laugh.
Yeah. Well, one thing you do is I'm trying to move into drama, which is easier. Because, there's no such... the thing with comedy on telly, if there's a bad sitcom, people just go, that wasn't funny. How dare they? How dare they think that was funny? Whereas a bad drama, you just go, it just wasn't that dramatic, but it's fine. So I am genuinely trying to move into a bit of drama. But also... I do know a lot of comedians who do struggle, and they have that kind of Tony Hancock sort of thing. I know a few. My old flatmate is a comedian, and he struggles with mental health things as well. He has because the highs are high, but the lows are low, and you have to come off after a great gig thinking I'm not as good as they thought I was, just as you come off after a bad gig thinking I'm not as bad as they thought I was, because it can feel incredibly personal. I've had awful gigs where you then got to walk out through the audience and they're just going, nice try, mate, or whatever, and that's at best, so it can be tough. And one person who's great at this is a thing called Millikan's Law. Sarah Millikan, I'm sure you're familiar with. Have you heard this? Millikan's Law. She has this idea that if you have a really great gig, you can pat yourselves on the back, you can think you are the best in the world until 10 o'clock the next morning, and then you have to reset, and that gig never happened. Equally, if you have an awful gig, you can walk around and feel like the worst comedian in the world, but knowing that at 10 o'clock the next morning, that slate is wiped clean, and you start again. And it's a lot of comedians kind of take that on, and it's quite a healthy... I think they often shift the hours from 10 till noon, because a lot of them lie in, but but it's quite a healthy way of looking at it, because it's very easy to you can't just walk off stage and switch off. You have that physiological sort of come down from a gig. But similarly with the faith side of things, I think that whole thing of wiping the slate clean is something that echoes throughout Christianity as well. And the fact that you can walk off after any experience, adventure, moment in your life, but still know that you are loved and still know that you are treasured. And for me, one of the things I keep coming back to with Christianity is that this, in all the world religions, this is the one that is personal. It's the one that says that God made every star in the sky, but also every grain of sand on that beach, and knitted us together in our mother's wombs, knows us so personally that he's not just this kind of big shot, wide lens universe creator, but also the up close and personal. And that, if I've had a bad gig, God knows all about it, And one last story to finish with. I did a comedy club gig about a year or so ago, and I'm pretty clean, I think it's fair to say. But that said, in the past, I will confess, early on, I was a Christian at the time, but I had a few jokes that were a little bawdier, a little racier. And it was partly because I was trying to fit in with the comedy circuit, and I've since realised that wasn't me, didn't work at all. It worked on the night, but I wasn't being genuine, wasn't being honest, and I wasn't being nice, really. I was never Frankie Boyle levels, but still. About a year or so ago, I was running late for a gig. I was closing at the club, 3 other comedians had been on, and the compere said to me, they're really lively, bit bawdy, they love all the kind of sex, drugs, and rock and roll stuff. And I thought, well, that's not really... I've just come from a church gig, But I went on, and I'm guilty of saying that I went on, I slightly boarded it up a bit and just upped a bit of I chucked in a couple of swear words and just made it a bit more that. And then I walked off and thought, that's not me. That's not... What was I doing? And I told myself that's the last time you're doing that. Don't change to try and fit in like that. Just try and be a beacon of light and all that. And sure enough, I walked off stage, and a guy at the bar came up to me and he said, oh, hi there. I'm the local vicar from the church down the road. We've booked you for a comedy night in a couple of months' time. Do you have another set that you could do? And I said, yes, I do. That wasn't the real me. That was someone else. I'm sorry. And I really felt God was putting that guy there to just sort of go, yeah, you see, I'm always here. I'm in the front row, and I'm in the green room afterwards, and you know what? I'm in the car on the way home as well. We can talk about how the gig went, but, that's one of those that, for me, I'm putting behind me now.
Okay. we need to wrap up. We have gone a little over 9, and I apologize for that. That's yeah. Next evenings will be more on time. But I do like to ask a final question to every guest, and that is just, in the audience here, we've got Christians, we've got people who are not, some people who are really skeptical, some people who maybe are really curious. I guess what would be your advice, especially approaching questions of faith? What's your final thoughts?
It's the obvious thing to say is no. There's no harm in looking, is there? There's no harm in trying, pondering it, test the shape of it. Like I said, and everyone's own faith is very personal. It is a very personal religion. It's a very personal faith. It's about a relationship with God, a relationship with Jesus, and everyone has their own stories they bring to that. So I would encourage people to, yes, come along to a church, come along to the events you've got on this week as well, find out other people's faith stories, find out other people you might know who have their own faith stories. That doesn't mean you have to have a carbon copy of their faith story and a carbon copy of their experiences, but I think, knowing those, talking is just something that we're often not great at in this country, but we need to do better at. And yeah, just learning from other people's stories and letting that influence yours for the better. I think there's no harm in that at all. So yeah, I'd encourage people just keep coming back, and don't. It's easy not to come back as well. And I spent a long time. I was a Christian, but I was floating around between churches, especially as a student. I couldn't quite settle. I was doing other things as well. And before, I was a regular at one church a bit, and then I sort of just didn't come back for a couple of weeks, and then it was 3 weeks. And then it was easier not to come back than it was to go back there again. And I would just urge people that if that's you, make that effort and go back, and don't worry about if it's been a while. Doesn't matter, it doesn't matter at all. No one's counting, no one's judging. Probably people haven't even noticed. That's the terrible thing. But yeah, I would just say it's easy. Sometimes it feels easier just to not go back to these things. But I would just say keep coming back. Why not?
Thank you so much, Paul. It's been so great to have you. We'll stop interrogating you here. But yeah, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for making me laugh.
Thank you for having us.
And can we give him a hand? Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Just some wrapping up. I didn't tell Paul what to say for his final answer, but it did segue very well for me. If you would like to, or curious about, would like to ask more questions, explore a bit more yourself into faith, into God, and the big questions of life, that kind of thing. As he talked about during the stand-up, Christianity is all about Christ, and maybe a guy called Ian. You can explore that for yourself. And a great way to, if you want to just look for yourself as an adult into what you think about Jesus, a great way is to read one of the first-hand accounts of his life. So this is called Uncover Mark. It's just Mark's gospel, one of the accounts of Jesus' life. And it's also really handy in that it has questions in it, which you could look at with a friend over a cocktail or over coffee or whatever setting you want to, and explore for yourself, who do you think Jesus is, and some of these other big questions of life. If that's something you'd be interested in, maybe you'd like to do it with somebody you came with, something like that, you're welcome to take a free copy of this. They'll be over on one of the rum barrels over this corner. I'll be standing there too. You're welcome to take one. It's our gift to you. Also, just to say, Paul will be around for a little bit. If you want to ask him a question or anything, or want to buy one of his books, please do. And we have 2 more evenings, Real Lives, tomorrow night here again. We have Dr. Sharon Dirks from the Oxford Centre for Christian Apologetics. Sharon has a doctorate from Cambridge in brain imaging science. She's going to be interviewed on, her science, I guess you could say, her faith, and how do those, come together? Aren't they in conflict? And then she'll do Q&A, so you'll have an opportunity to ask your questions, grill her, and enjoy great food and drinks here at Cuba de Revolution. And then Thursday night we have Warner Miller. Warner is an American,
An actor based in New York City. He's been in films like American Gangster with Denzel Washington and in Netflix's Luke Cage. And he'll be sharing about, his experience in acting and a bit about his faith and a bit about his wrestling with trying to make sense in his mind what he believed in his heart. So you're welcome to come back, same place, tomorrow night and Thursday night as well. Thank you so much for coming, and can we give another round of applause to Paul and also to the staff here at Hollywood Revolution? Yeah. Thank you so much, and enjoy your night.